think we are ready. Let's see. 12 people. Okay. We are ready to go. Welcome, everybody. So, Chan Radhamadavat. Actually, I have to mute everybody. Hold on a second. There we go. You're all muted. Jaya Radhamadhava Jaya Kunjaviyadi Jaya Radhamadhava Kunjaviyadi Vijana Balabha Jaya Kivarunadi Kivarunadi Vijana Balabha Jai Giri Varuna Giri Varuna Yasoda Nandana Shachana Rajana Yasoda Nandana Shachana Rajana Yamuna Tira Vanachane Raho Kunjaviyade Kunjaviyade Yamuna Tira Vanachane Raho Kunjaviyade Kunjaviyade Jaya Radhamadhava Jaya Kunjaviyade Jaya Radhamadhava Jaya Kunjaviyade Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivarunave Jaya Girivarunave Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivarunade Jaya Girivarunade Yasoda Nandana Jaya Prajajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Jaya Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiramanachari Kunjaviyare Kunjaviyare Yamuna Tiramanachari Kunjaviyare Kunjaviyare Jaya Radhamadhava Kunjaviyade Jaya Radhamadhava Jaya Kunjaviyade Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Acharya Ostadetta Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai, Namacharya Shirohira Thakur ki jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavanam ki jai. Maturidam ki jai, Jagadasami ki jai, Yamunamai ki jai, Shrimati Lasi Devi ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Shilpopad ki jai, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya. Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharne Nirva Shesha Shunya Badi Paschatya Desatarane. Okay, so Omagana Dividanda Shah Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Meditam Yena Tasmai Shi Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So we're continuing with our reading of the Caitanya Caritamrta. We're on the Adi Lila chapter 7, and we're going to share our screen. And if you're interested in reading after I finish my reading, just raise your hand, not in the video window, but raise your hand, clap your hands. All right, anyway, so let's share the screen. 1 second. Share the screen. Here we go. All right, wait 1 second. I see. Okay, we're on text, 28 today, starting with text 28. This is completely ecstatico. Yata yata prema vrishti kari pancha jane tata bade jala vyape tri bhuvane. What this means is the more the 5 members of the Panchatattva cause the rains of love of God to fall, the more the inundation increases and spreads all over the world. And Prabhupada said, the Krishna consciousness movement is not stereotyped or stagnant. It will spread all over the world in spite of all objections by fools and rascals that European and American malechas cannot be accepted as brahmanas or sannyasis. Here it is indicated that this process will spread and inundate the entire world with Krishna consciousness. So this is actually a discussion that's gone on for a long time, and people were criticizing Prabhupada for giving sannyas and giving Brahman initiation to Europeans and Americans and having ladies and men live in the temple. And Prabhupada was not stereotyped in his approach. What does that mean? He didn't stick to just like the external details the way everybody else did it. So that's the secret to spreading Krishna consciousness, especially nowadays in the modern world. Notice I'm not saying Western world, because in the modern world, people are not into old styles. Not in India, not elsewhere, maybe in China they are, but not elsewhere. They're not into the old styles, the styles of dress, the styles of music. They're into new external styles, which can be used in Krishna consciousness. So the secret is presenting Krishna consciousness according to a particular culture. Just like in China, the devotees have Chinese instruments, Chinese dress, Chinese music styles, but they're chanting the transcendental Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So many times people think to be Krishna conscious, you have to imitate a culture that's no longer existing on the Earth planet, more or less, in a few, except for in a few isolated little pockets. So if we want our movement to be accepted widely, we have to really have Krishna consciousness according to whatever culture we're in. And even in America, that means we change according to different places in America. Like if we go to the south of America, not South America, I'm not talking about the southern part of the United States, then we have to speak differently. You have to say, wouldn't you all like chant Hare Krishna? It is so nectarine. And if we go to New York, we have to speak differently. Hey, what do you think about that Hare Krishna? Nice chanting. You become free. So anyways, I'm just joking. But you don't really have to do those sorts of things. But you have to adjust your presentation according to time, place, and circumstance. Like if you have to turn the morning program into a concert with Western instruments, do it to bring people to Krishna consciousness. Just chant Hare Krishna. Don't chant some bogus mantra, obviously. So that's the point. And Prabhupada was expert in knowing where he was, who he was talking to, what time it was, and because of Prabhupada's expertise, intelligence, Krishna consciousness, purity, we are here today. Believe me. So, Mayavadi Karma Nishta Kutarkika Gana Nindakapasandiyata Paduya Adama Se Sabamaha Daksha Dana Palaila Se Vanyata Sabare Chunnite Narila. The impersonalists, fruitive workers, false logicians, blasphemers, non-devotees, and lowest among the student community. Anyway, that's funny. Student community. Yeah, because student community in America is probably the most degraded. In many ways. Because there's no morals. Their parents didn't guide them, or they don't have parents. They're test tube babies. No, anyway. Are very expert in avoiding the Krishna consciousness movement. Therefore, the inundation of Krishna consciousness cannot touch them. Purport. Like Mayavadi philosophers in the past, such as Prakashananda Saraswati of Benares, modern impersonalists are not interested in Lord Chaitanya's Krishna consciousness movement. They do not know the value of this material world. They consider it false and cannot understand how the Krishna consciousness movement can utilize it. They are so absorbed in impersonal thought that they take it for granted that all spiritual variety is material, because they do not know anything beyond their misconception of the Brahmajyoti. They cannot understand that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is spiritual, and therefore beyond the conception of material illusion. Whenever Krishna incarnates personally or as a devotee, these Mayavadi philosophers accept him as an ordinary human being. This is condemned in the Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, text 11. Avajananti mam mudha manushim tanam ashritam param bhavam ajananto mamuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. There are also other unscrupulous persons who exploit the Lord's appearance by posing as incarnations to cheat the innocent public. An incarnation of God should pass the test of the statements of the Shastras and also perform uncommon activities. One should not accept a rascal as an incarnation of God, but should test his ability to act as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For example, Krishna taught Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna accepted him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But for our understanding, Arjuna requested the Lord to manifest his universal form, thus testing whether he was actually the Supreme Lord. Similarly, one must test a so-called incarnation of Godhead according to the standard criteria. To avoid being misled by an exhibition of mystic powers, it is best to examine a so-called incarnation of God in the light of the statements of Shastras. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was described in the Shastras as an incarnation of Krishna. Therefore, if one wants to imitate Lord Chaitanya and claim to be an incarnation, he must show evidence from the Shastras about his appearance to substantiate his claim. In other words, if you run into someone who says he's God, say, okay, just do something like a little interesting. Lift a little mountain, or even if you can't lift a mountain, here's my car, lift it up if you're God. Anyway, so many of these so-called gods that came from India, and one of them came from Korea, actually, they couldn't do a damn thing. They could produce some ashes using magical or pseudo-magical tricks, magicians' tricks. Taha deke Mahaprabhu karena chintana, jagat dubhaite ami karilum yatana, kea idaila pratigya haila vanga, tasabad dubaite patiba kichu ranga. Seeing that the Mayavadis and others were fleeing, Lord Chaitanya thought, I wanted everyone to be immersed in this inundation of love of Godhead, but some of them have escaped. Therefore, I shall devise a trick to drown them also. So here, let's see what the Bengali says. Yeah, Ranga. That's good, a trick. That's interesting. In other words, Lord Chaitanya is not rejecting anyone. He's tricking everyone to become Krishna conscious. So whatever you have to do, without breaking the regular principles, of course, but whatever disguise you have to put on, whatever music you have to play, whatever you have to do, bring people to Krishna consciousness. Palena pariciyate, that everything is judged by the result. Here's an important point. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to invent a way to capture the Mayavadis and others who did not take interest in the Krishna consciousness movement. Actually, I was just thinking of something. How that Grandfather Bhishma in the Mahabharata didn't understand the point of you have to judge things by the result. He was very much into rituals. What was his ritual? Gotta keep my word. I promised my father that I would do this. Well, buddy, sorry, Bhishma's a Mahajan. Well, Grandfather Bhishma, you're not thinking about the result. So many times devotees, they are attached to external things and they don't think, what is the result of that attachment? The result, if it's not that people will become Krishna conscious, then, and you will simply become proud of your ability to follow certain externals, then at that point, I don't want to use the word stupid, but you're just niyamagraha. That's a better word. This is the symptom of an acharya. An acharya who comes for the service of the Lord cannot be expected to conform to a stereotype, for he must find the ways and means by which Krishna consciousness may be spread. Sometimes jealous persons criticize the Krishna conscious movement because it engages equally both boys and girls in distributing love of Godhead. And now, of course, we're engaging men and women, but at that time it was just boys and girls, children. We were children when we joined the Krishna conscious movement. It was 50 years ago that I joined full time. 50 years ago. Wow. I joined full time. I was following before that, but 50 years ago I joined full time, 1971. And it's 2021 now. Oh my God. Where have all the young boys gone? Gone to old bodies, everyone. When will they ever learn? So not knowing the boys and girls in countries like Europe and America mix very freely, these fools and rascals criticize the boys and girls of Christian consciousness for intermingling. But these rascals should consider that one cannot suddenly change a community's social customs. However, since both the boys and the girls are being trained to become preachers, these girls, or those girls, not ordinary girls, but as good as their brothers who are preaching Krishna consciousness. Therefore, to engage both boys and girls in fully transcendental activities is a policy intended to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. These jealous fools who criticize the intermingling of boys and girls will simply have to be satisfied with their own foolishness because they cannot think of how to spread the Krishna consciousness by adopting ways and means that are favorable for this purpose. The stereotype methods will never help spread Krishna consciousness. Therefore, what we are doing is perfect by the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for it is he who proposed to invent a way to capture those who strayed from Krishna consciousness. Wow. What a perfect purport for our preaching movement. Invent a way to capture those who strayed from Krishna consciousness. Wow. Eta bhale mane kichu kariya vichara. Sannyasa shrama prabhu kaila angikara. Thus the Lord accepted the sannyas order of life after full consideration. There is no need for Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to accept sannyas, for he is God himself, and therefore has nothing to do with the material bodily concept of life. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not identify himself with any of the 8 varnas and ashramas, namely brahmachari, or brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, shudra, brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. He identified himself as the Supreme Spirit. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or for that matter any pure devotee, never identifies with these social and spiritual divisions of life, for a devotee is always transcendental to these different gradations of society. Nevertheless, Lord Chaitanya decided to accept sannyas on the grounds that when he became a sannyasi, everyone would show him respect and in that way be favored. Although there was actually no need for him to accept sannyas, he did so for the benefit of those who might think him an ordinary human being. The main purpose of his accepting sannyas was to deliver the Mayavadi sannyasis. This will be evident later in this chapter. In other words, he did what was favorable for preaching Krishna consciousness. Because in India, sannyasis are naturally respected. It's a fact. You dress a certain way and people go, Maharaj. Even you may be a big rascal. They still go, Maharaj. I mean, I'll give you an example. My own life. Sometimes I go and dress in Western clothes. We don't want to use the word karmi clothes because clothes are neither karmi or bikarmi or akarmi or sarva karmi or whatever. Clothes are clothes. They're cotton or silk or polyester. They're clothes. Cloth. That's it. Cloth. So anyway, sometimes I would dress in Western cloth, especially when I'm exercising. Every day I exercise. And so dhotis are not so good for exercising, especially when it's cold out. Dhotis are not so good for swimming. Dhotis are not so good for paddling in the river, especially when there's crocodiles there, because the crocodiles catch hold of the dhotis. They're very dangerous. So, therefore, sometimes we're dressed in Western clothes, so we walk by the temple, and some guests are there, and they basically ignore me. Hey, who are you, guy? I say, Hare Krishna. And then when I walk by the temple in the dhoti, sannyasi, they go, oh, Maharaj, what do you need? Anything you need, we will give you. Oh, let us bow down at your lotus feet. Well, I tell you, the same feet are there, whether I'm wearing a dhoti or Western clothes. Whether my feet are lotus or lodo. Lodo is actually Spanish for mud, anyway. Whether you have mud feet or lotus feet, the feet are the same. I don't change feet when I change my clothes. But, that's Bhagavatam says that people will be known as religious or whatever by their clothes in Kali Yuga. People look very let's say, in a very external way, people look at you. So anyway, so I've experienced that. So whenever we want respect, we dress up as a sannyasi, and if we want even more respect, we carry a danda. Hmm. And if we want even more respect, then we look serious. Sorry about that one. This is so external in Kali Yuga. Everybody's just external. So anyway, so Lord Chaitanya did that so that people would not offend him. People would listen to him. Oh, Maharaj, Chaitanya Maharaj, okay. What do you have to say? So like when he approached Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya gave him great respect just because he was in the sannyasa order of life. And also Prakashananda Saraswati, when he was preaching to the Mayavadis in Benares, if he had been just a regular Grahastha, they wouldn't have invited him in, but they invited him because he was a sannyasi. So it's a trick. It is a trick. However, in the Western world, it doesn't make a difference. I mean, I could go to a university and say, hey, I'm a sannyasi, and everyone will say, well, that and $3 will get you a pass in the subway in New York. Anyway. But in India, it's different. You know, I can just like dress as a sannyasi and walk onto the subway without pain. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has explained the term Mayavadi as follows. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental to the material conception of life. A Mayavadi is one who considers the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, to be made of Maya, and who also considers the abode of the Lord and the process of approaching him, devotional service, to be Maya. The Mayavadi considers all the paraphernalia of devotional service to be Maya. Everything is Maya. Maya refers to the material existence which is characterized by the reactions of fruitive activities. Mayavadis consider devotional service to be among such fruitive activities. According to them, when Bhagavata devotees are purified by philosophical speculation, they will come to the real point of liberation. Those who speculate in this way regarding devotional service are called kutarkikas, false logicians, and those who consider devotional service to be fruitive activity are called karmanishtas. Those who criticize devotional service are called nindakas, blasphemers, offenders. Similarly, devotees who consider devotional activity, non-devotees, sorry, who consider devotional activities to be material are called pashandis, and scholars with a similar viewpoint are called adama padugyas. The kutarkikas, nindakas, pashandis, and adama padugyas all avoided the benefit of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement of developing love of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt compassion for them, and it is for this reason that he decided to accept the sannyasa order, for by seeing him as a sannyasi, they would offer respects. The sannyasa order is still respected in India. Indeed, the very dress of a sannyasi still commands respect from the Indian public. Now, it's changing. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas to facilitate preaching his devotional cult, although otherwise he had no need to accept the fourth order of spiritual life. But also there's an esoteric reason why he accepted sannyas, because sannyas is like in the mood of separation, in Vipralamba Seva. It's the Vipralamba Seva ashram, in which one can do away with ordinary social etiquette and absorb oneself in Krishna's service. That's the benefit of sannyas, or many benefits, of course. And another benefit is you get free prasadam. Of course, Lord Chaitanya did it for preaching. Sa Chavisha Vatsara Chila Grahasta Ashrame Panchavimshati Varshe Kaila Yati Dharme. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained in household life for 24 years, and on the verge of his 25th year, he accepted the sannyasa order. And Prabhupada explains, there are 4 orders of spiritual life, namely brahmacharya, that's student, grahastas, married, vanaprastha, retired, and sannyas. And in each of these ashramas, there are 4 divisions. The division of the brahmacharya ashram are Savitraya, Prajapatya, Brahma, and Brihat. And the divisions of the grahastha ashram are Varta, professionals, Sanchaya, accumulators. Wow, sounds interesting. Shalina, those who do not ask anything from anyone, and Shilochana, those who collect grains from the paddy fields. Similarly, the divisions of the Vanaprastha ashram are Vaikanasa, Vailakilya, Dumbara, and Penapa, and the divisions of sannyasa are Kutichak, Bahuda, Kangsa, and Nishkriya. Now that I understand. Sannyasa, the other orders, I don't really know what they mean. So let me describe the sannyas orders. So in the beginning, when one takes sannyas, Kutichak, okay, then the first thing one does is, because they can't figure out how to iron their clothes or clean their clothes or eat, they actually reside in the same village, and their son brings them food every day or twice a day or 3 times a day. That's Kutichak. And they're first getting a little detached from things. That's hard. That's really hard. And then after that, one gets a little bit more detached from things. Okay. And then one goes around and asks other people for food. That's called Madhukari. And in the Madhukari order of life, one goes to different houses and asks each person, can you please give me a chapati, or at least a slice of pizza, or a sweet ball, or a pakora, or halava, or gulab jamuns, or what else do people like, or kasha, or quinoa. Anyway, you collect a little bit from each house. Not that you're supposed to just sit down in each house and eat like a piggy. So that's Madhukari. And then after that, Parvajakacharya, which is like Bahuda, in which one travels from all over the place, preaching Krishna consciousness, and Krishna will provide. And then Hamsa, Paramahamsa, one actually remains or travels and just depends on Krishna, doesn't ask anyone for food. Nishkriya, I guess, means completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness. There are 2 kinds of sannyasis that are called dhiras and narottamas. Narottama means best, highest of human being, and dhira means one who is peaceful. Stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1:13:26 to 27. Interesting to read about that because I don't remember that. At the end of the month of January in the year 1432, Shakabda, that is AD 1510, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the sannyasa order from Keshava Bharati, belonged to the Shankara Sampradaya. So this is about the time, the end of the month of January, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas many, many years ago, 1510. Wow. It's a long time ago. So let's see, 510 years ago. Yeah, it's 511 years ago. Anyway, and Lord Chaitanya took sannyas from a person who belonged to the Shankara Sampradaya because that was the accepted Sampradaya. Even though he was a Vaisnava sannyasi instead of an impersonal sannyasi, the reason he took it from the impersonalist Sampradaya because that was what was accepted, and he would be able to more carry out his preaching activities. However, the guru who he took his sannyas from got initiated by Lord Chaitanya before he gave Lord Chaitanya sannyas. That's Keshava Bharati. And how did Lord Chaitanya do that? Right before his sannyas ceremony, he said to Keshava Bharati, last night I had a dream. And in that dream you gave me this sannyas mantra. Can I tell you what the mantra is? And Keshava Bharati said yes. And Lord Chaitanya whispered that mantra to Keshava Bharati's ear. And by hearing that mantra from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Keshava Bharti became initiated as a Vaishnava sannyasi, even though he was ostensibly in the Shankara Sampradaya. So it was Lord Chaitanya's trick that he took sannyasa in the Shankara Sampradaya, or apparently ostensibly in the Shankara Sampradaya, because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to trick people so that they would respect him. Now, he didn't want respect, because one of the opulences of God is that he is detached from everything. It's one of the 6 opulences, renunciation. And so, but he was merciful to everybody. And he made a trick. So in the same way, we should dress up in whatever way brings people to Krishna consciousness, of course, nicely. So sannyasa kariya prabhu koila karshana yateka palancha chila tarkika digana. Except after accepting the sannyasa order, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu attracted the attention of all those who evaded him, beginning with the logicians. Paduya pashandi karmi nindakari yatta tarasi prabhupaya haya avanata. Thus the students, let's see how they, the word for students, paduya, yeah, those infidels, fruitive workers, and critics all came to surrender into the lotus feet of the Lord. Here's the secret. Aparada sammaila dubila prema jale kevai daiva prabora prema mahajale. Lord Chaitanya excused them all, and they merged into the ocean of devotional service, for no one can escape the unique loving network of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Purport: Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was an ideal acharya. An acharya is an ideal teacher who knows the purport of the revealed scriptures, behaves exactly according to their injunctions, and teaches his students to adopt these principles also. As an ideal acharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu devised ways to capture all kinds of atheists and materialists. Every acharya has a specific means of propagating a spiritual movement with the aim of bringing men to Krishna consciousness, and women. Therefore, the method of one acharya may be different from that of another, but the ultimate goal is never neglected. Srila Rupa Goswami recommends, Tasmat kenap yubhayena mana Krishna niveshayat sarve vidhi nishedakshu etayoreva kinkaraha. An acharya should devise a means by which people may somehow or other come to Krishna consciousness. First, they should become Krishna conscious, and all the prescribed rules and regulations may later gradually be introduced. Very important. Not that you pile things on people immediately in the beginning. Okay, you got to wear your hair like that. You got to button your shirt like that. You got to give the salute, the official salute, the official ring you have to wear. I mean, I'm being a little facetious right now. Bow down, Mr. Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. It's not like that. Said first, they become, you get people chanting, give them prasadam, encourage them, and then they wake up, and then the rules and regulations are not rules and regulations anymore. They're just something people want to do. You know, if you ask someone who's Krishna conscious, do you want to eat meat? No. Why? It's disgusting and cruel. Do you want to take intoxication? What? So in other words, you don't pile like Prabhupada did when he first started the movement in New York. He just put everybody into the room. Of course, they had to follow a few things. And gradually introduce more and more things to the devotees. But, you know, the first Harinams, they went out with a bass drum and trumpets and everything like that. And, you know, unfortunately, people just getting more and more, I hate to use the word strict, but more and more just like, you got to do it this way, you got to do that way, you got to dance that way. Don't dance wildly. It's crazy if you want to bring people to Krishna consciousness. If you want to be a bunch of puffed up, old, ritualistic brahmanas, that's another thing, if that's your goal. That's your goal. Our goal is to change the face of the world, to create a revolution in the misdirected lives of an impious civilization, not to be proud of our. It's like the Christian church. You have Jesus Christ was attacking the people who were proud of their rituals. They were called the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and that's why they killed him. And also, he was interfering with their money making. They were making money by being money changers and selling animals for slaughter, and because of their position, you interfere with someone's business, and that's it. You're finished, buddy. In our Christian conscious movement, we follow this policy of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. For example, since boys and girls in the Western countries freely intermingle, special concessions regarding their customs and habits are necessary to bring them to Krishna consciousness. The Acharya must devise a means to bring them to devotional service. Therefore, although I'm a sannyasi, I sometimes take part in getting boys and girls married. Although in the history of sannyas, no sannyasi has personally taken part in marrying his disciples. Prabhupada did something very unique. He became the marriage arranger, matchmaker. Just like you have this song. No, anyway, I shouldn't chant the song. Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match. Find me a find, catch me a catch. Anyway, so you have these songs that reflect upon a certain tradition. So Prabhupada actually did that. And had marriages. And, at a certain point it got disgusted because the people didn't stick to their vows. But that's very bad. Prabhupada stressed vows, keeping your promises, very important. So Sabadnishtadite Prabhu Kripa Avatara, Sabadnishtadite Kare Chaturi Apara. Whoops. Caitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in order to deliver all the fallen souls. Therefore, he devised many methods to liberate them from the clutches of Maya. So the reason I'm not sharing the reading right now is because it's something I really need to talk about. And I think it's important that I do the reading today, if that's all right with all you Prabhus and Prabhis. Yeah, someone just outlined this, which is really cool. Deja Kalapatra. You can annotate. Yeah, I'm allowed to annotate. Don't you annotate. I am the boss here. Whoopsie. Anyway. Format. Anyway. Somehow or other. It is the concern of the Acharya to show mercy to the fallen souls. In this connection, Desha, Kala, Patra, the time, the place, and the object should be taken into consideration. Since American boys and girls, and now Indian boys and girls in our Krishna conscious movement preach together, less intelligent men criticize their mingling without restriction. In Europe and America, boys and girls, let me just erase this stuff up here. In Europe and America, boys and girls mingle unrestrictedly and have equal rights. Therefore, it is not possible to completely separate the men from the women. However, we are thoroughly instructing both men and women how to preach, and actually they're preaching wonderfully. In the beginning of the movement, there was no improper or extremely limited improper mixing of boys and girls. They were all there together, and it was like brothers and sisters. That was our mood. Everything was just very chaste. It was like brothers and sisters. a family serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, we very strictly prohibit illicit sex. Boys and girls who are not married are not allowed to sleep together or live together. And there are separate arrangements for boys and girls in every temple, which is true. Grahastas live outside the temple, for in the temple we do not allow even husband and wife to live together. The results of this are very wonderful. Both men and women are preaching the gospel of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Krishna with redoubled strength. In this verse, the words Sabanishtarite Kare Chaturti Apara indicate that Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to deliver one and all. Therefore, it is a principle that a preacher must strictly follow the rules and regulations laid down in the Shastras, yet at the same time devise a means by which the preaching work to reclaim the fallen may go on with full force. This is an amazing section of the Srimad Chaitanya Charitamrta. Tabi nija bhakta kaila yata malacha adi sabe daila mantra kashira mayavadi. All were converted into devotees of Lord Chaitanya, even the Malechas and Yavanas. Only the impersonalist followers of Shankaracharya evaded him. In this verse, it is clearly indicated that although Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu converted Muslims and other Malechas into devotees, the impersonalist followers of Shankaracharya could not be converted. After accepting the renounced order of life, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu converted many karma nishtas who were addicted to fruitive activities, many great logicians like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, nindakas, blasphemers like Prakashananda Saraswati, Pashandis, non-devotees like Jagan Mare, and Adama Paduyas, degraded students at North Carolina State, like Mukunda and his friends. All of them gradually became devotees to the Lord, even Pathans, Muslims. But the worst offenders, the impersonalists, were extremely difficult to convert, for they very tactfully escaped the devices of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In describing the Kashira Mayavadis, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has explained that persons who are bewildered by empiric knowledge, means direct perception, or direct sensual perception, and who thus consider that even this limited material world can be gauged by their material estimations, conclude that anything that one can discern by direct sense perception is but maya, or illusion. They maintain that although the absolute truth is beyond the range of sense perception and includes no spiritual variety or enjoyment, according to the Kashira Mayavadis, the spiritual world is simply void. Their brains are void. They do not believe in the personality of the absolute truth or in its varieties of activities in the spiritual world. Although they have their own arguments, which are not very strong, they have no conception of the variegated activities of the absolute truth. These impersonalists, who are followers of Shankaracharya, are generally known as Kashira Mayavadis, impersonalists residing in Varanasi. Near Varanasi, there's another group of impersonalists who are known as Saranata Mayavadis. Outside the city of Varanasi is a place known as Saranata, where there is a big Buddhist stupa. Many followers of Buddhist philosophy live there, and they are known as Saranata Mayavadis. The impersonalists of Saranata differ from those of Varanasi, for the Varanasi impersonalists propagate the idea that the impersonal Brahman is truth, whereas material varieties are false. But the Saranata impersonalists do not even believe that the absolute truth of Brahman can be understood as the opposite of Maya or illusion. In other words, everything is false. According to their vision, materialism is the only manifestation of the absolute truth. Factually, both the Kashira and the Saranata Mayavadis, as well as any other philosophers, have no knowledge of the spirit soul, are advocates of utter materialism. None of them have clear knowledge regarding the absolute or spiritual world. Philosophers like the Saranata Mayavadis, who do not believe in the spiritual existence of the absolute truth, but consider material varieties to be everything, do not believe that there are two kinds of nature, inferior material and superior spiritual, as described in the Bhagavad Gita. Actually, neither the Varanasi or Saranata Mayavadis accept the principles of Bhagavad Gita due to a poor fund of knowledge. Since these impersonalists do not have perfect spiritual knowledge, cannot understand the principles of Bhakti Yoga, they must be classified among the non-devotees who are against the Krishna conscious movement. We sometimes feel inconvenienced by the hindrances offered by these impersonalists, but we do not care about their so-called philosophy, for we are propagating our own philosophy as presented in Bhagavad Gita as it is, and getting successful results, theorizing as if devotional service were subject to their mental speculation. Both kinds of Mayavadi impersonalists conclude that the subject matter of Bhakti Yoga is a creation of Maya and that Krishna, devotional service, and the devotee are also Maya. Therefore, as stated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mayavadi, Krishna Aparadi, all the Mayavadis are offenders to Lord Krishna. Chaitanya Charitamrta, 17 chapter 129th verse. It is not possible for them to understand the Krishna conscious movement, therefore we do not value their philosophical conclusions. However experts such quarrelsome impersonalists are in putting forward their so-called logic, we defeat them in every respect and go forward with our Krishna consciousness movement. Their imaginative mental speculation cannot deter the progress of the Krishna consciousness movement, which is completely spiritual and is never under the control of such Mayavadis. And now we will take questions from all you Mayavadis. So, let us unmute or allow you all to unmute yourselves. You are officially allowed to unmute yourselves. So who has a
Dave,
question? Yes.
earlier you were speaking about the early days of ISKCON and how all of the devotees, boys and girls, would cooperate with one another in a familial mood, and it was very chaste, and everything went on very well. So we think very much these days about the term and the concept of sustainability. So we see that, especially after Srila Prabhupada left, or even before he left, as the movement grew and had so many more followers and so many more temples, that mood didn't continue in the same way, and we face different challenges now. So how to create sustainability with that mood and that fire?
Well, we have to try to understand why that mood stopped, that everybody saw each other as brothers and sisters. One of the reasons it stopped it uh, was that people, anyway, some of the first sannyasis in the Krishna conscious movement, they started to emphasize or propagate the philosophy that the opposite sex are seen as objects of Maya. So when you start to think of other people as the objects of Maya rather than as part and parcel of Krishna, that's the way you see it. Just like our beloved president of the soon to be gone, he said, when you say something enough times, people see in that way. Fake news it's called. So ISKCON has had its fake news for a long time. Sorry about that one. Where you actually say, this is this, this is this, this is this. So, ooh. Just like a story that Prabhupada told about that one, it was either Gopal Bhan or someone else, who was convinced that he had become a ghost. Even he was convinced of fake news. The king had just like a whole strategy to convince this guy that he was a ghost. And so the first person says, oh, Gopal Bhan, you become a ghost. And he thought, yeah, crazy. Second guy, oh, you become a ghost. Okay. What is he talking about? Third guy, you become a ghost. And then, maybe there's some truth in this. Fourth guy, you become a ghost. I'm a ghost. So it depends. Like when you have men and women or boys and girls, if you see each other as parts and parcels of Krishna, as someone to be respected and not to be exploited, and you have that philosophy propagated, then people will not exploit each other. I mean, there will always be some exploitation, but people will be more inclined to see properly. But when you hear over and over again, there's an object, there's Maya Devi. Ooh, it's scary. Oh, here comes a Maya Devi. Oh my God, let me hide. let me, what is it? Let me put on my mask. That's what masks are for, preventing yourself from seeing Maya. Let me
Follow-up
become
question?
a Mayavadi, because then all you're seeing is the white light. That's the white light. So anyway, so I think that ISKCON, we actually had a strategic meeting the other day where we were talking about the old days in ISKCON and how it was like more of a family mood. That you just see everybody as part and parcel of Christian. You don't try to exploit someone. You don't see someone as an agent of Maya. You see everybody as, we're all spirit souls struggling to be Krishna conscious or enter the Brahmajyoti.
Follow-up question.
Yeah.
So if the mood was so sweet and wonderful and everyone was advancing and so forth, how did the thoughts in the minds of these sannyasis that you're speaking of degrade to this level?
Well, I guess it's a combination of pride. It's a combination of influence. They went to India and they got influenced by some sannyasis and different moths and things like that. Anyway, it's a combination of different factors.
Bad
I,
association.
yeah, bad association. Tomorrow I'll show you a very interesting video clip of souls merging in the Brahmajyoti. It's really funny clip. It's a cartoon of souls. They go into the Brahmajyoti and they go, "Whit, whit." It's actually really interesting. I was laughing at that before. So anyway, what's sad? It's not laughable. It's sad, but at least they come out again after some time. So anyway, things happen like this. These things happen like this. So ISKCON should be like a family mood, and we should respect, like Prabhupada said, unity and diversity. They now we just not everybody, but now we find many people that unity. It has to be my way or the highway. We have many discussions on that. I'm not going to talk about these discussions, things going on right now, but many people think that unity means me, the way I do things, the way I see things, my particular hermeneutical approach is the best approach. There may be many different hermeneutical approaches to different injunctions or to presenting Krishna consciousness, many bona fide ones. Many bona fide ways to presenting Krishna consciousness. I mean, of course, we have our things that are written in stone, like you're a spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, you're undergoing reincarnation. By bhakti, you can get out, like that. The spiritual world. We got all these things that are written in stone, but not a lot of things written in stone. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he came up with something called the Dashamula, which is like the 10 things written in stone. And, other things are adjustable. Like Prabhupada, he adjusted the chanting from 64 rounds to 16 rounds. So Prabhupada did adjust quite a few things. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, on the other hand, he did allow people to chant 16 rounds if they were going out and preaching. But if they were simply staying back in the temple and ringing bells, then they had to chant 64 rounds. Ringing bells and eating prasadam. Just like sometimes here, if I want to see the devotees, the only time I could see them is at like 1:30 in the afternoon. Because at 1:30 in the afternoon, it's like prasadam time, obviously, And all of a sudden, people who I haven't seen for weeks, they actually manifest themselves. They come out of the Brahmajyoti during that particular time. It's really interesting. It's really interesting phenomenon. It's like if you ever taken care of cows, they all follow a certain path at a certain time of the day. You can tell which field they are in a certain time of the day when they're supposed to get fed. They all show up there. And our farm in New Taliban, when it's time for the milking, the lady who milks the cows doesn't have to call them. They all know when it's time, because then they get their grains to the food. So anyway, oh my God. So interesting phenomena. The main thing
Thank
is
you,
to get
Guru.
people Krishna conscious. I mean, who cares how they dress? As long They follow the four regulated principles, and in the beginning you get people to chant. Then automatically they'll follow the four regulated principles. You give people a little bit at a time, then let them do things automatically, not forced. Oh my God! I mean, I just remember so many times people would come to the temple and they'd sit down at the Sunday feast. New people, Westerners, and they'd start to eat with their left hands, and the devotees would say, "No, that's your moochie hand." And this poor guy, from the West, they don't even know what the word moochie means. This poor innocent person who's coming to eat prasadam for the first time. Don't touch anything with that hand. It's moochie. It's dirty. It's more dirty than your anus. So like that. And then your mouth. Oh my God, these people. I mean, oh my God. Or they come to the temple and they can't find any toilet paper at the temple. You're supposed to use your hand. or you're supposed or you're supposed to stand on the toilet. If someone comes to the temple for the first time, you say, "Where's the toilet seat?" Well, just stand on it. And the poor guy falls in. I mean, you got to really be in tune with the culture. And then, and when you're distributing prasadam, distribute sometimes like cookies, even though it's not Vedic. Prabhupada loved cookies. Prabhupada loved cookies. Not that you only give out gulab-jamuns. I mean, it's kind of... Prabhupada sometimes there's funny stories like when Prabhupada was preaching to someone, the devotees would give them a gulab-jamun and it was dripping all over the place. And they asked Prabhupada, "What do you do with it?" And he said, "Eat it," and he popped the whole gulab-jamun in his mouth at one time. But, got to be practical. Sometimes you distribute other types of prasadam. It's not that only gulab-jamuns will make people Krishna conscious. If you distribute Krishna conscious pizza, can make people just as Krishna conscious, as long as it's offered with love and devotion. But sometimes we think, it's not bona fide. Quinoa. People hear that I eat quinoa or kasha and they think, "Oh, how could he be Krishna conscious? He's just supposed to eat dal, rice, and chapatis." He's in Maya. He's not eating dal, rice, and chapatis. He's not eating halava. And he's not getting diabetes. How can he be Krishna conscious unless he has diabetes from eating the sweets? People actually think like that. They identify a certain type of food with Krishna consciousness. Well, prasadam, yes. But prasadam could be all sorts of varieties according to the culture. Just like in China, the devotees eat their prasadam with chopsticks, right? Chopsticks. So since not that you're going to stop the Chinese and say, "Hey, Mr. Chinaman, you should eat with your hands, with your right hand. Don't touch the chopsticks with your left hand." I mean, it's like, oh my God. I mean, the reason I'm speaking like this is because of the verses that we came across in the Caitanya Caritamrta today about preaching. It's really inspiring to hear about, Acharya's devised ways and means to spread Krishna consciousness. And we should be open to everybody. It's the United Nations of the spiritual world. The United Nations of the spiritual world. Not one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. Make America great again. Anyway. So Someone asked a question in the chat window. Wait a second. Gurudev, please accept my humble base. My question: in India, people are more inclined to ritual bhakti, but not so to hearing and chanting. How should we approach them? That's true. People approach to just a lot of different rituals, but hearing and chanting is not. Hearing and chanting, we should explain to them that there's two paths in bhakti: Pancharatriki Vidi, which is the rituals, and Bhagavat Vidi, which is the hearing and chanting. And in this day and age, the hearing and chanting is more important than the rituals. Two tracks. We do have to follow some rituals. Certainly, I do. But I accept things favorable and I reject things that are not helpful to my hearing and chanting about Krishna. So we just set an example. We just have a kirtan and we get them involved and get them to dance. Just like drag them into the kirtan and say, dance partner. like in the what was that? Like in the Tulsi, why did Tulsi ask the question? Oh, Mahamantra's there. That's good. He's a dancer. So Tulsi asks, please explain why husband and wife are supposed to live together. Prabhupada said, unless they are husband and wife, they're not supposed to live together. That's what Prabhupada said.
Well, it said they weren't supposed to live together.
No, Prabhupada didn't say that. You have to read very carefully. Unless they're husbands and wives, they don't. Prabhupada didn't say husband and wife are not supposed to live together. You are a fanatical old school Hare Krishna. And I think
No, it just when it said it wasn't
no,
supposed
it didn't say. You have a different version than I have.
Prabhupada
Prabhupada
specifically said not to live together in the temple.
not live together in the temple. Oh, in the temple, yeah, that's right. Yeah, obviously. I think, Mantra, you put yourself on mute. I think that's the sound we're getting. Yeah, that's it. That's better. So, yeah, in the temple, you got to read the whole thing. Obviously, in the temple, because, try to give Bhagavatam class with little babies running around, or people on their honeymoon. In Spanish, they call the honeymoon the luna de miel, which means the moon of honey. And we have a saying in English, the honeymoon is over. It's like, anyway. Anyway, don't want to give a sannyas class. He said, in the temple. Thank you for Gopal for adding that. I know the Prabhupada would never say husband and wife should not live together, but not in the temple, obviously. In the beginning days, actually, we had a grahastha section in the temple, which wasn't part of the main building. It was part. I'll tell you a funny story, and then we'll end class. It was actually a separate section connected to the temple, but not actually part of the temple building. So I was the temple commander in Chicago. Was it Chicago? Yeah, it was Chicago. Oh my God. Oh my God. There's a devotee here who was in that temple at that time. And let's see who's in class right now. I just got to be careful about this. Anyway, it was in Chicago, and a devotee and her husband, and some of her children here in North Carolina. Anyway, so who was in that temple, and as a temple commander, it was sometimes my duty to wake up the grahastas, so they would go to the morning program. So I would. I mean, I was a little wild in those days. So I would go and open the door to the grahasta area that was connected to the temple and yell out, wake up, you're all in Maya. You're sleeping in the lap of the witch called Maya. Time for the morning program. So, anyway, those are the good old days in Krishna consciousness. Okay, I think we have to end now. we learned a lot from class today. Thank you very much for attending. And we see the Jagas and the Brahmajodi emerged. His picture shows it emerged in the Brahmajodi today. It's a colorful Brahmajodi. Oh, there he is, smiling. He came, he came out of the Brahmajodi for us. Okay, on that happy note, we will see everybody tomorrow. I'm sure it was lively. I felt very enlivened by tonight's class because it's very special stuff. Okay, all glories to Srila